Hi, welcome to my video on the 12 notes and their order, as well as whole steps and half steps. This is sort of a building block for music theory. In particular, I tend to use it as a building block for harmony, understanding notes in a chord, and you could use this to understand scales as well. So the 12 notes in Western music are written above here. We're not starting at A because that's the lowest note. We're just using that as a point of reference. There are 7 natural notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and there are 5 accidentals which occur between the natural notes with the exception of B and C and E and F. So we have A sharp and B flat, C sharp and D flat, D sharp, E flat, F sharp, G flat, G sharp and A flat. The reason those accidentals, called accidentals because they tend to cause mistakes in music, the reason they're written as such, one on top of the other, is because this is just one note, but it has 2 different names. In other words, if we're playing music and we start on A and we want the very next higher note, which happens to be a half step higher, that would be called either A sharp or B flat, depending on the key you're in. If you're in a flat key, we would call it B flat. If we were in a sharp key, we would call it A sharp. So A sharp, B, C, and you can hear how these notes all have the same distance between them, and that distance is a half step. When we talk about intervals, that's what we're referring to, the distance between notes, and that's how that's what harmony is all about. Really, it's a way to conceptualize the differences, the distances between notes. So those are half steps. You can make half steps just like whole steps or any other intervals. They can go up or down. So if we're on a D and we go down a half step, well, that note is either C sharp or D flat. Well, it's that note, but it's either called C sharp or D flat, depending on our key. If we go higher than D, then we would have a half step higher than D, we'd have D sharp or E flat. So the important thing to remember, the takeaway message here, between each 2 natural notes, there's an accidental. This will be very useful, as you'll see in a minute when we put together chords. However, there is an exception to that. So the exception to the rule that each 2 natural notes have an accidental between them would be B and C and E and F. In that case, we go right from B to C. In other words, no accidental between them, and we go right from E to F. They're a half step apart. Okay. That brings me to whole steps and half steps. So half steps, as we've discussed, are 1 note apart or right next to each other. Whole steps are 2 notes apart or 2 half steps apart. Example of a whole step, if we're on B, B to C sharp or B to D flat are a whole step apart. Whereas a half step would be B to C. Say we're on D sharp, a whole step lower than D sharp is C sharp or D flat. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, I'm going to stop there because before we get into chords, I think it's a good idea to cap that video so you can always rewind it and go over anything. And this way, if you're already familiar with the intervals, you can start right on part 2.